Cool bananas. All right. Cheers. So, yeah, guys. So, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me here. I'm Phil Rice. This is the Phil Rice YouTube channel, and normally, fire we could talk about any number of things. Um, Primarily, the channel is sort of focused on meditation and healing, energetics, hermetics, just things that I'm really interested in, and this this set of platforms here allows me to sort of reach a reasonable sort of number of people, which is quite exciting. In my time teaching everything from Reiki, meditation, very broad term, very broad topic, but still very valid as a word, because I think when it comes to introducing people to terms that they may already have an existing sort of relationship with, but they may be put off by them for whatever reason. They don't understand them, or there may be some kind of personal bias against it. We can sort of, because there's a lot of very beneficial practices and I guess ways to interact with the self and the world people aren't aware of, or they're being put off because they've got like I said, a bias towards it. And so this is me. I'm on here, and I'm just showing up, seeing if anyone wants to chat. The chat's open. We can talk about anything. What's going on? What part of the world you guys in? What are you guys doing? Are any of you practices? Are I presume that some of you guys are on the initiation into Hermetics pathway. If you've got any questions or anything you want to put in the chat about that, just go for it. For those of you who aren't aware, I am an energy healer as well, meditation instruction. I've got a reasonably good scholarship on the topic of Reiki, and I just want to say too that Reiki is so much more than what I've originally discovered, and it's quite fascinating actually, because generally gets sort of boxed in with its relationship to things like symbols or sigils. But what's really cool is that it's got its own set of qigong practices that nobody talks about. Like, nobody talks about. And it's sort of like, there's all these well-known practices that we hear about from across the world, traditions, and that have sort of over time, I guess they've lost a little bit of their potency and a little bit of their original substance for whatever reason. And, we're at a pretty awesome time in history right now with being able to reach so many people and share our discoveries. Whether we're trying to share, roads to peacefulness and stillness, or roads to potency and influence, roads to reach, roads to sharing just the best of what we've come across. I'm sure that many of you watching here have made many discoveries in your time, and maybe you're thinking about getting involved in social media, or sharing a message, or sharing your wisdom, your accumulated wisdom, because in a world where we're seeing a rise in automation, and that includes very convincing simulacras of humans. There's going to be a bit of a craving emerge, I think, for real people. So I was listening to something recently talking about the end of the age of sort of information and information packages, mainly because you can get that information like that, right? So you don't need to necessarily go to YouTube anymore. But people still want to go to YouTube because they want to see a person or hear a person. They don't necessarily want an automated voice or just screeds of text, unless when it's appropriate. But I think, because you can listen to the same, like say 5 people explain the same thing correctly, all in the same way. But there's an element of personality filter that's missing that can make that information come across more engaging. It could be that, you might hear me talking about a particular approach to practice or instruction in some form or another, or philosophy or something like that. And you go, yes, I agree with what he's saying, but for some reason his voice grates me, or I don't like the way he dresses, and you may not be sure why. It could be anything. And thank you, Zane. Yeah, long live Meat Space, my brother. I can't actually bring up Facebook comments, which is a bit unfortunate. But the ability to share your personal story with the nuance of your personality and your quirks and your life story and experience is going to be a new type of highly valuable currency. So, for example, recently I had Bob and James on from 60 Skills and Perseus, and we're talking about the new affiliate program. So you can, you can essentially start, if you're doing the 60 Skills program, you can start a social media presence, talk about your successes and refer people, and then you can use that, when people make a purchase through your supplied affiliate link, you can sort of generate income. So for those people who are considering becoming, you want to become a full-time paid, trainee essentially, or practicer, that's a bit weird. How cool is that, right? I'm sort of living that a little bit, still working on it. Trying to get a good frictionless formula right, so that uh, my presence online here doesn't get in the way of things that are important, but I also want to share. And so I'm kind of finding the equilibrium in all of this. So I've got a new space set up here, sort of dropped the sort of the darker theme and the darker tone. Want to get a little more, what am I looking for here? I guess I'm looking to lighten things up a bit. And, I've got my little friend here. Hello. He's been with me for a long time. I wanted to get a bookshelf in, that one. It's only a half-size one. I've got another stack of books in the other room. But yeah, I'm in a new room, and I wanted to bring a little bit more of myself, with personality, with some depth with a room like this, and some nice lighting and things like that. And I've had some people help me out with this, and I'm so grateful. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been helping me get set up and giving me instruction on how to tweak things so that they look awesome. I'm pretty pleased with it, actually. It's quite a minimal setup compared to what I'd usually have. Normally, I would have about probably a good sort of, I'd have to block all the lights out of the room, because the other room, the natural lighting was not that suitable. And then I would have to set up a backdrop, and then I would have to set up panels and light management and these types of things. Whereas this is a room, I've got a curtain open here, I've got the screen here, which helps to diffuse the light nicely, and then I've got a couple of lamps here. I've got a new desk set up. It's really cool. So it's easy for me to do this now, and I want to do this more. I want to do these hangouts more, and I want to get more community conversation going. I also want to explore some ways for those of you who want to see how I can provide service to you through some kind of system of payment. I'm not sure how else to say it, because I would like to get into some more teaching in that. I've already produced a reasonable sized body of content here, but I would like to lean more into social media. I'm sort of slowly finding my voice, and I've tried a bunch of things, as some of you will have known. I've been, I tried running a tarot channel a bit last year, and I did about 25 hours of live streaming with tarot, and man, I tell you what, that was hard work. I didn't want to go back to doing that. I don't know. I like exploring interests. I have a bit of time and space to do so, and build up a bit of an audience here. And some of you guys are here for different reasons. Some of you are here because of the guests. Some of you are here because of the live panels, and some of you are here because of this, that, and the other thing. Maybe some of you are here to see me, and for that I'm grateful. Thank you. I got to remember, I got to train myself to look into the camera. I spend too much time looking at the instruments, and got to be more sort of focused. So I'm still learning, but this is great, you know. So if any of you guys have got questions about live streaming or social media, just throw them in. I'll do my best to answer them. I'll probably make a few more videos on this actually, because I know some of you want to get online, and I'm more than happy to help. And you know, I've had some success with some of my formulas that I've toiled over to figure out, and I've got a couple of them actually, and I might throw them on the Substack. Actually, I might detail some of them on there. I might make some short videos on them, and then make some sort of longer, sort of detailed things. All right. Oh, hello, Nostalgia 9256. I'm very well, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, so you know, here I am. You know, feel free to drop a question in. We're just hanging out. I want to say that whew, it's getting pretty warm here. We've had a real funny weather situation here in New Zealand, especially in Auckland. We've had the last few summers have been quite odd. Um, we've had a lot of storms and some intense weather. Hasn't been that hot actually, funnily enough. Oh, hey, it's Frater IAC. How are you, brother? It's great to see you. Thank you so much. I am so pleased that you enjoyed that. It's that kind of encouragement that I may bring it back, or I may try another format with tarot, because tarot is very special. Uh, and yeah, you know, there's real value in it. There really is value in it. Now, not everyone's going to agree with that, but not everyone finds value in the same things. And there is a unique value in tarot. But yeah, the live streams were quite long, and um, yeah, I mean, yeah, it was actually, I did have a purpose to you know, to sort of monetize it somehow, because yeah, I'm still not sure about how to do that. I need to think about that some more. Yeah, oh, okay, you do. Yeah, I love the. Yeah, I check out my tarot deck daily as well. I've got some beautiful decks. I've got my old. Here we go. This will be fun. Oh yes, I see another question from Nostalgia. So here's a brand new deck that a friend of mine found in a secondhand store. A brand new deck. Here's my old deck. Look at the thickness difference. So this one I've had for years. This one's pretty well worn. And you know what's funny is that they have different personalities. I don't know if you've noticed that, Frater. But yeah, I've got two of these Rider Waite decks. They're identical, but they're not. You know, they're very unique. This one's very fresh. And then I've got my beautiful Crowley Harris deck, the big one. And this is absolutely lovely, this deck. It really is. I love the images on it, and it's very deep as well. It's got a lot of deep symbolism, you know, especially if you're into Kabbalah and Hermetics. So yeah, thank you, Frater. I may get back into some tarot. Okay, we've got another comment here. I want to start on energy healing. What books do you recommend, and how can I IIH into it? Okay, so as far as energy healing goes, um, okay, so I've spent a fair few years ago, I was doing a lot of research on energy healing, and they all bring something valuable to the. Oh, hello! Somebody's in Substack. Hello, Demeter. Hello, welcome. Oh, so pleased that somebody's on Substack. Awesome. With energy healing, there is essentially. I've got a stack of books here. It really depends on, you know, whether you're coming at it from, say, uh, you know, you're wanting to record evidence of success, or it's hard to explain, because I found myself approaching it from different angles over the years as I've explored different modalities. And what I find is that at the end of the day, what I have come down to is this: is that the in step 3 of IIH, and the addendum at the back on biomagnetism, excuse me, is an excellent discourse on that, and I thoroughly recommend that as a good starting place. I have, multiple books on Reiki, and they all say something different, and they're all very different from each other. And you know, there are so many. There's Quantum Touch. There's Eric Pearl with the Reconnection. There's Richard Bartlett with Matrix Energetics. Richard Gordon was Quantum Touch. There's Bill Bengston with the Energy Cure. Um, I think that if you're wanting to go for things that have like like this one here. So this is the Energy Cure by Bill Bengston, and it has a very interesting exercise in it, which points towards basically generating contentment. And this book, there's also I got both of them. So basically, these are the same. This is just like an audio book version of this thing. I got both, and they're excellent. And he has done studies. I think he's done 10 studies in 5 universities with controls. And so this is like William Bengston. I'll bring it up there so you can see it. This is great because basically he gets a mouse, what he calls a mouse model, and they inject. It's pretty horrific. So just so you know, they inject these mice with sarcoma, and then they type of cancer tumor, and then they have a process in which the mice will not live beyond 27 days. That's pretty much guaranteed. Okay, and so what happens is that they then perform the healing an hour every day, and they found that it was something like 90% of the mice were surviving, and they couldn't re-inject them with the cancer, and basically the mice were fine. And I even believe that the coming generations of mice were unable to take on the disease as well. So that's a very good one because it's very appealing, I think, for those who maybe air element or wanting references to studies and language. I found that I needed to have a type of association with. I wanted it to appeal to my intellectual mind, and then of course there's plenty of books on Reiki. I've got lots of them. I've got lots of them on Kindle as well. Uh, they vary so much, but when it comes to energy healing, um, I would say depending on whether you want to come at it from you want to satisfy an academic part of your curiosity, I would say definitely William Bengston. If you are wanting more of an Eastern side of it, I would say that probably I haven't got the two usual Reiki books. This is one that's pretty well known. This has got a lot of Taoist Qigong in it, and it gives you a lot of stuff that you don't need. And I have a sort of a mixed sort of relationship with this particular book because this was the book that released the Reiki symbols to the world. These were generally sort of kept for people in the Reiki circles when you got taught Reiki, and then this lady decided to publicize them. So they went from being a very what you might call a very closeted or tight egregore to anyone can get access to it. And that one is good. Any of these are good because they will give you information on treatment approaches for different types of ailments as well. You'll find a lot of references in the thicker books. Some of them tend to be a bit flaky, I think. But yeah, okay. I'm already convinced on the mental and academic side. I want more of the energetic anatomy side of it that Barden mentioned and how to treat different ailments. Yeah, so I think that for that, This is an excellent book to study. The formulas in here, like the formula section, the 2 letter formulas, which there's quite a few on, they will give you examples of which letters work well with different types of ailments. Obviously, say for air element, if you've got asthma or respiratory illnesses, if water element for things in the abdomen and these types of things. That's a good reference point. When it comes to sort of hermetic healing, um, I know what you're asking for, which is essentially, if person has this, then do this kind of thing. We're looking for this kind of book that tells us what to do, or system that tells us what to do. What I've found is that after all of this study and all of this time, um, you know, people, I will get people on the table, and I will quieten. I will put some white noise or some pink noise on in the background, and I will seal the lights off in the room and get them very comfortable, and I'll take them through a relaxation process. And this becomes mixed part sort of shamanic healing and energy healing and shamanic experience and this type of thing. Why? Because people will get what they need. Now, there's a difference between active healing and passive healing. So, passive healing, if we just take Reiki, for example, it can be either. You can actively change things in people's subtle bodies. And the problem with that is that if you don't have a bit of clear audience or some kind of higher self connection, this can be problematic because some people aren't supposed to have their problems resolved. They're there for a reason. There are a bunch of workarounds for this, but with Reiki, because it tends to be passive, it's the some will call it the God energy. Um, you know, if the person can have a outcome, then they will have it. But you're not the one deciding to change things. You know, um, because if you go to the level of say KDQ, you're dealing with blunt forces, and you can make changes, and then you can take on people's karma and cause problems, and that's something I steer away from. Like I wanted to be able to, you know, I wanted to up my success rate basically, and I I just tried lots of things, and what I found is that if you can get the person really still and really quiet and really relaxed, so there's a technique in Reiki called Byosen, Byosen, and that is when you scan the body and you listen with your hands, with your clairsentience, you listen for fluctuations, and you'll feel them, hot spots, and you put your energy up, you put your hand over it, and then you wait for it to dissipate. That's very much hands-on. Obviously, with Barden, he's mentioning that you don't even need to be in the same room with the person. Reiki talks about that a bit too, but doesn't really give a good robust sort of explanation with uh, the Hermetic point of view, which I think any energy healer would do well to read Initiation into Hermetics, even just that 3rd chapter. So yeah, that would be my suggestion. Would be to just find books on healing with Kabbalah. Mark Stavish has a book on that as well. That will give you a very hermetic view of healing. I think when it comes to this, there's authors out there. There's obviously Paracelsus and these kinds of things. Essentially, they've got like KDQ with those formulas will tell you, the letters that go with which ailments, so to speak. If you read through it, and you can pick out which letters are those. Are they a water letter, an earth letter, an air letter, and so on and so forth. Because the early, it was all about elemental imbalance and correcting those balances by using the elements. And so that is how I would sort of approach that. If you're looking for the ultimate, you just got to keep searching. But if you tend yourself towards being a hermetic practicer and using hermetic methods, using elements, one thing I do is since discovering Baden, is that I will basically rinse people out with elements and that will, there will be, if they're one of the elements is up and one's down, rather than accumulate them in them, the rinse will just kind of top them up, and I'll just measure to see how they respond, because some people may have adverse reactions to that style. I'll usually start with Reiki and things like that, just to help people relax, just to even them out. A gentle approach, because some of these approaches, especially the Hermetic stuff, is very direct, and it's very can be abrupt for some people. You know, whereas say something like Reiki is very much like, what would you call it? It's like the WD-40, or the it's an all-purpose type of thing. It's very passive and gentle. That's a good word for it, is gentle. Whereas if you're using blunt forces like elements or letters, double letters obviously with people, um, you know, I'm still exploring that. I'm very careful about how I introduce these things to people, and you know, yeah, you've just got to be, you'll know. But even, I like the Reiki approach to this whole conversation, in that, you know, you are cultivating yourself, much like Baden. Reiki, the system of Reiki Ryoho, Asui Reiki Ryoho, and Baden's initiation into Hermetics and KTQ and so forth, they're very similar in the respect that you are cultivating your inner world. And then Baden talks about the radiance, or your emanations, or your radiant force, and you can direct your radiance or your emanations into another to give them healing. But it's not coming from in you, it's just an external expression of your inner world. It's better explained in the book, but Reiki is essentially the same. This is where I think a lot of Reiki practices have completely overlooked a critical aspect of what it is. It's a practice. It's a practice that includes healing. Reiki is also an ascension pathway, but that it's kind of been lost over time. So, but it all comes back to inner cultivation, and then when you become like an alpha tuning fork of health and well-being. Baden mentions this too. If you're going to be a healer, make sure that you're in good shape, and then you can just be with someone, and they don't necessarily take energy from you, or whatever. It depends. Like I said, you can just be with someone, and if they're open, if they're receptive, if they drop their chi, their protective chi, then they can start to sort of acclimatize or attune to your health. You're a tuning fork. There's no exchange of energy. There's many approaches to this. Um, but yeah, I just found that, like a healer's lifestyle, for example, where you are, you're getting lots of exercise, you're eating well, you're super picky with food, you're super picky with what you watch and listen to, who you hang out with, your personal environment. I know when I'm getting slack with these things, how that can be unhelpful for myself. And I know where my limits are. Like, if I'm not right, then I won't. If I know when I'm not right to do a healing session, you know. And I think, once again, thanks to Barden, he talks about this. Like, you can pass things on to people, and people can come back to you as well. So, like I said, I think the healer's lifestyle, whether you do Reiki, which is great because lots of people know about that one, or you just you're like as a sort of generic energy healer or a holistic healer, which is sort of where I find myself going now. Uh, you know, being fit and well and healthy, you become an excellent ambassador for these. Because I mean, if you look at people like Mikao Sui and Franz Baden himself, they were quite large chaps, and Asui died not long after he was famous for Reiki. And Baden was obviously a smoker and a coffee drinker, and was quite overweight, and they weren't exactly sort of like great ambassadors of health from a glance. Doesn't mean they weren't able to deliver healthy outcomes for people, but I think when it comes to the long game, especially with what we know now and the technology, and we're able to live much better lives generally. It's an opportunity, I think, because one thing I've noticed is that when I've got when I've got in the past, especially when I've had, you know, lots of clients, it brings about a real sense of uh, what's the word? Peacefulness, compassion. You know, you got people with real problems, and then you see the results, and it's humbling. You know, especially when, you know, the last three people have got quite incredible results, and then the next one or two people don't seem to get results, but they get other types of results. It's almost like, I think there's a little bit of surrender involved with this, in that just setting up the room, setting up a nice, quiet, peaceful space with some, you know, I don't use music. I started using music for a while, but it would take people on like a bit of a journey, and then there were beats involved. I stopped using, you know, I didn't use singing music, and I didn't use music with a rhythm as such. Just sort of like very sort of new agey sort of waving synths and things. But when it came to the ideal situation, I just started using pink noise, which essentially sounds like a waterfall, and, you know, like a natural sounds, and people were just able to sort of like, because it filled in the room, it filled in the space, and so people were able to sort of like, they weren't hearing the road noise, and they weren't hearing the dog next door, and they weren't hearing this and that and the rest of it, and the person doing the lawns. It filled in the space, and so that's a very effective thing. Switch the light stimulus off as well, dim the lights, get them to relax, take them through muscle relaxation, guided muscle relaxation, tense release through all the muscles of the body, and then get them to sink into the bed. I have a whole sort of protocol I've developed over time. But when they're relaxed, they turn off um, energy usages within their body, and everything just sort of quietens down and relaxes, and then internal resources can get sort of directed towards what is needed. And this is, you know, really where it's at now. I have developed some other skills which I still find quite interesting, that can create interesting outcomes. And, you know, this is more to do with standing practice, with the qigong and tai chi stuff that you'll see Mark Rasmus do on his channel. That took quite a while to figure that out. I don't really have anyone here around me to practice with that's also a sort of a Barden / Rasmus practicer. Uh, but being able to stand up with someone and float them, and then just access their energy body, and then just sort of flood them and just take the pressure off their joints, or, you know, help to relax certain parts of their body while they're standing. That's very interesting. And it's probably my favorite thing to do, actually, is when I've got a client, is to do some standing stuff with them, depending on what they're coming to see me about. If they've got sort of, if they're stressed out, the best thing to do is just to get them to relax on the table, not on the chair, just get them straight on the table and relax, and then just take them through a guided relaxation. And that is probably what I've found the most effective way. I mean, if they've got like a localized issue, like they've just banged themselves, or they've got an injury or something like that, then you can just do direct hands-on. You know, there's something about touch as well that can be very soothing for people. Uh, and I think some people, you know, the if I was sitting on the other side of the room and just doing meditation and just sort of doing it at a mental or astral level, that some people probably, even though they're into that sort of thing, you know, they want the touch, you know. And I find that that is, you know, even though you know, you can do remote healing sessions, you can, you know, you can do absent healing, or whatever you might want to call it. Um, Anyone that hits me up for absent healing, like online sessions, I'll always recommend to them to go find someone local first. I'll say, hey, look, have you tried finding someone local that you can go and, like, Phil, I want to talk to you. I want to deal with you. It's like, okay, thank you. Grateful. But something very powerful being able to find someone local when you can go and see them and lay on a bed and have a very, obviously the etheric level is much more localized. And sometimes that is part of the sandwich, you know, that's recommended. So, yeah, but sorry, I did waffle on there a bit. Nostalgia. Um, Yeah, the energetic anatomy side of it, I want to say that Auto Mysticus, the Ray Del Sol website, has got he's actually selling some big posters of the Barden occult anatomy, which I'll probably get one at some point, or I'll get my own one made up, because when you start working with elements and the electric and magnetic fluids, you can cause healing outcomes by resetting things that are maybe like a magnetic part of your body has become a little bit too electric or something like this and it needs to be reset. So um, yeah, that's a little bit of a lowdown on healing, but there's so many books. Oh, this one here. Okay. All right. If you guys want to get I've shown people this one before, but so this is Richard Gordon. He wrote a book called Quantum Touch 2. A series of books called Quantum Touch, and that was the first healing practice that I learned. And it involves doing a body scan and then some breathing, and that is very effective. Quantum Touch 2, number 2. I'd get the second book. Don't worry about the first book, get the second book. This is the book that came after, or maybe even a couple after, The Secret Nature of Matter. This is a very long book, considering what the gem is that you get out of this one. There's an energy healing practice in here that's quite spectacular, actually, and I found it to be about 100% reproducible, and it's to do with basically the occipital muscle bone in the back of your head, and also the rotation of the pelvis. You can do a measurement, get an objective measurement of people's pelvis rotation, hip and pelvis, and then you do a no touch meditation. It's very quick, and then you go and check it, and it's corrected, and it's quite incredible. And this has been a uh, like it's funny, like it's hard to explain, but when people's you when you get down on your knees and you measure people's hips on the front and then hips on the back, and then the hip rotation, because a lot of people's hips are like this. I had a wallet in my back pocket for many years that was thick, and so my hips are pretty stuffed. Not anymore. Yoga helps. But when somebody's had a sore neck, like I had a friend who used to work on a dairy, at a dairy, like a local sort of convenience store, and he'd always have the phone in his ear, and he'd be like this, and he'd have his arm on there, and he'd always have a sore neck and a bit of a sore back. And he came up because we were having he was Indian chap, had a bulbul, a lay down Indian banjo, and he was um, had this neck problem. And so what I did was I said, well, this might help. And so I did this sort of no touch adjustment. It's almost like a calibration. And then he's like, oh my gosh, it's gone. He's had it for days, and he has it regularly, and now it's gone. And the next time I see him, he says, oh, it sometimes comes back, but it's not anywhere near as bad. And I'm like, would you like me to do another? He's like, yes, please. When people start getting real relief, and like it takes 2 minutes to do, and it's extremely curious about how it happens, it helps to keep that momentum of curiosity and wonder alive too, because setting up a table session, getting clients, and you're still kind of convincing yourself through collecting evidence, because it can take a bit for some. That's why I think doing Reiki classes are great, because you generally have 3-4 people in there, and you've got a teacher, and you're going to have a space where you can essentially compound your convictions through, sometimes the teacher will bring in people who have got problems, and you can have an unusual experience. I know I did when I went to, especially one of my Reiki classes. There was I got to have a think about that before I share that one, actually. I think when you've had an initial experience with energy healing, and you may be a bit skeptical still, because you're like, yeah, you're open-minded to it, but you're an open-minded skeptic. You're not a scoffer. I would say that, um, you know, people who say, prove it to me, and they've already got a bias against it. That subconscious bias can actually affect potential outcomes too. Uh, there are more mechanical ways. Like I said, you can float people and things like that if you can take their stance in that, but if they're grounded, there's lots of different energetic personality types, structural types, that can support or impede or hinder these interesting outcomes. But I think as far as developing a conviction of the effect of unlikely healing outcomes through some kind of energy healing or mental based healing, I after a while, like you start taking notes, right? You start seeing, a couple of 3 people a week. You take opportunities when somebody's got a sore thing, you hit them up. They'll either say yes or no. Um, you know, it's good to take notes. Those notes will compound your conviction, and you will find that um, you know these stories will start to stack up, and you'll start getting some pretty good metrics coming on. I mean, if you're getting like highly positive outcomes like 8 out of 10 times, that's pretty good, right? I was getting that. I had a hit rate of about 80 to 85% largely positive outcomes. I did a little bit of study on statistics because there's a lot of studies out there on energy healing that can be skewed this way and can be skewed that way. It depends on who's telling the story, right? So I wanted to know about it, and I wanted to learn some of that language so that I could speak to people who are academics about it. So I also used the other one that this chap, Richard Gordon, he gave me a system basically of recording metrics. So when somebody comes in, they say, oh man, I got a sore neck or sore back or shoulder or something. And you would say, okay, out of 10, with 10 being the most painful, what would you give it? And they'd say, oh, it's like an 8 or a 7 or something. And then after the session, now where is it? Oh, it's a 3 or a 1, or it's not there anymore. Sometimes it would only be a thing. And of course, when they're relaxed, it's going to help them manage the pain. But here's the thing: reduction in pain is still a valuable it's still time well spent. Now, obviously there's lots of ways to reduce pain, but if it's not involving some kind of manipulation or substance or chemical, this is a very like even Reiki, it's called the Usui Reiki Ryoho. It's like basically a natural healing method because it uses natural forces to harmonize. Because if you go out, how you go out into the forest, into the bush, and you just feel better. There's an overwhelming tuning fork active, a field of naturalness where you know nature just has this self-correcting property about it. And you spend enough time out there, what do they put prisoners in these places, and old people and people who have got mental illness into natural environments, and in many cases it causes highly positive outcomes. So you can turn yourself into one of these uber alpha tuning forks yourself. Barden talks about it. I think it's in, where is it? I'm trying to remember where it is. So it's this book here, Initiation into Hermetics. He talks about it. I think it's in, I tell you what I might do, guys, is I might actually, it's great that there's some questions coming through. Thank you. Please put your questions in and I'll do my very best to answer them. I've had quite a lot of experience with doing energy healing. It's been a bit sporadic the last sort of few years. I've been trying to get set back up locally, but I've had a bit of hiccups trying to find a good room and these types of things. And yeah, so, it's on the horizon. I've had the calling to get back into it and just to push a little bit harder to get myself out there. I've sort of been leaning on sort of exploring social media the last couple of years, but yeah, this book does an excellent job of explaining, what would you call it, the general various types, and some of the. I mean, I've looked at all of these different methods far out. I've kind of lost track of the number of different healing methods. Most of them have been from, I had a sort of an internal sort of predilection towards sort of Western teachers, because they spoke a language that was much more appealing to me. They used scientific terms and scholarly language, which was appealing to me. That's what I wanted. But once you start getting results, um, the results speak for themselves. You've got people who are having very interesting outcomes, and they're looking at you surprised. And one thing that's quite interesting is a few days later when you hit them up, you say, "Hey, how you doing?" Or the next day, "How you doing?" Sometimes it happens the next day, and sometimes it happens the day after. Doesn't always happen straight away. Usually there's a pain reduction if it's a pain related thing or a stress related thing. But for me, I have to say the most interesting one is when at the end of the session, you know, you just sort of say, "Hey, so tell me, would you like to share any of what you experienced?" Because once you've dimmed the lights and you've filled the sound up, and so it's kind of the sound becomes a background thing. They're not being pulled out of whatever's going on, because a lot of them end up going on a bit of a journey. It ends up being like a journey for them if you can set it up right. They're able to really relax, and you have a chat with them afterwards, and you say, "Hey, so was there anything that you'd like to share?" And they'll generally start off with, "No, yeah, no, not really." And I said, "Okay," because I don't prompt them straight away. I just sort of give them little nudges. Then I say, "Well, was there any sort of images that you saw?" "No, not. Oh, actually, you know what I did? I saw maybe some colors or some shapes." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Were there any sounds?" And they're like, "Nah." "Oh, actually," it's funny because it's like dream recall. You just start nudging them a bit, you know. Don't overload the nudging though, but you just start talking to them and just saying, "Oh, what about this and this?" And you go through the senses. Do you just smell anything? Do you taste anything? Usually smell and taste, not so much. Did you feel anything? Can be a big one. Some people have felt them like part of themselves lifting up off the table, or someone might have an out of body experience. It's pretty wild. Sometimes people might feel like there's a presence in the room, or they might see someone else in the room. Sometimes they'll just, a lot of people will actually sort of just go unconscious or fall asleep, and people will have very meaningful visual experiences, like they'll have like a mini dream or something, and then with a little bit of conversation, and that's what I have to say has probably been one of the skills that I've valued learning the most, is that it's the after session conversation. Because people say, "Oh, actually I had this really beautiful visual experience of, like, back in my childhood," or "I was with someone who I care about and it was very very relaxing and peaceful." I'm like, "Oh man, that sounds healing." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, it was." And they go, "Oh yeah," and they get up at the table and they just feel a lot lighter. They look lighter and they've got a bit more peace and stillness about them. And I have to say, that's, for me, that's the most satisfying. You know, um, I think too that when people are able to recall a little bit what happened, you know, there's new value. They can get up off the table and their shoulders much better. Sometimes they come because they've got a sore shoulder or a sore thumb, but that's not what they leave with. They don't. Sometimes people have come in with a sore thing and left with the same sore thing, but they leave with some other kind of value. You know, um, it's really hard to sort of guess the outcome or predict the outcome. And obviously, we want to help people out for what they came in for, you know. And so we can do localized healing things. But then there's this kind of holistic effect that happens, which is, you know, I've had calls from people the next day to say, "Hey, man, I had the best night's sleep, or I had a full on night of dreams, or you know, or when I left, I had a whole bunch of things I used to normally do, and it's a bit of a chore, but they ended up being really easy. And I've just had a really beautiful afternoon." And I think for me, that's probably the most interesting part of all of this, is that people have been, reporting, sure, they're feeling better here, they're feeling better here. That's a big one. People people, especially people going through grief and things, and maybe, you know, people will have emotional sorts of what's the word? They'll discharge emotions. There'll be an emotional energy released, and that could be quite powerful. And you know, you don't have to say anything. I think, you know, you feel like you want to say something, but you're better off not to say anything. You just, you know, you got to kind of got to play it by ear. You just, if anything, you want to be reassuring and just to let the sort of the situation facilitate itself. Um, but yeah, it's very special because the more you do it, the more interesting it gets. And if you are on a development pathway like the initiation into Hermetics framework, or just meditation in general, taking the sort of the healer's route, and, you know, investing in it as a being like a thing, uh, it it can be very, it can support that unfolding of interesting experiences, and that's one of the reasons I like it. And even just talking about it reminds me of that, you know, because when you're doing it, when you're interested in it, when you're interested in helping people and using, you know, these natural forces and these higher capacities to sort of help people out, people finding peace, and then when people tell you that their life has improved somehow, you know, it's very satisfying. You know, I mean, it's always curious when somebody has a problem, like they've had a problem for 6 weeks or even a year and a half or something, right? And they can't get rid of it. They've tried everything, taken the pills, they've had the physio, they've been to the doctor, they've tried this, that, and the other thing. And then they sit in front of you and you put your hands on them, or even just away from them. And they go, oh, I can feel that. Or they might say, I can't feel anything. Am I supposed to feel anything? I tell you this, what I found is that they don't need to feel anything for there to be some kind of positive outcome. Sometimes people have felt things and they haven't really had some kind of significant outcome. And that's the other thing too, is that I think, from my own experience, people, this is not always a one and done thing. Sometimes people need to come for a number of sessions, and sounds like a good business model, and and it could be argued that that's the case. But just like you wouldn't just go to the physio once, you know, like someone can come in and get one session and their pain is gone, and it's gone for good. It's nice, awesome, sorted. The reality is that, you know, when you're doing this sort of thing and you've got a room to pay for and it's maybe your main source of income sort of thing, it can be a very expensive way to get certain ailments sorted. Sometimes it's cheaper to go get physio. Sometimes physio might actually be the better option. Although, to be fair, it's hard to tell. Some people come to you because they feel a natural calling to it. And some people will come to you because, honestly, you are the last resort. They are just absolutely stuck on what to do. They've tried everything, nothing will sort their problem, and they're just stressed out. This thing won't go away. And to be fair, I'm happy to be the last resort in this respect, because people are much more open to, you know, possibility, because they've tried everything. Because when people are like, you know, they've already got a sort of a socially programmed preference for methods of dealing with things. You know, oh, I've got this problem, I do this. You know what? That's what we've always done. But they do that and that doesn't work. Then they go look on Google and try the next thing, or they go see the doctor, or they try this and that and the other thing. And, you know, I've got to be careful too, right? You know, I can't say that, you know, this replaces usual contemporary medical, you know, interventions, because we can't say that for a variety of reasons. But um, it's very surprising what can come out of these sessions. It is incredibly surprising, and it's always interesting. It's not one of these sort of same shit, different day kinds of jobs. And it's actually lovely to just be speaking about it, to be fair, because like I said, I haven't been that active in doing it. I was actually, there's a beautiful shop just up the road, in our local mall in the little village I live in. There's a vegan store that used to be an organic store. Now it's a vegan store. And there's a natural health company store next door. And they have practitioner rooms. Unfortunately, they weren't perfect though. There was no external window. It was a room inside a room. They did have aircon, which was awesome, The rooms are beautiful and the table's fine and they're just beautiful rooms. But there was noise going on. It was in a built-up commercial area, lots of other retail shops. They had a packing room where they were doing dispatch, and there were courier drivers coming in and out, and kind of work that I like doing, which is definitely more leaning on the sort of the shamanic end. And I'm not talking about beating drums and things, but I'm talking about people having a journey on the table. That is really interesting. You can help set that up. So, for example, if you're currently like a Reiki practicer or just energy healer, and you've got people in a sort of a room that's just like lit by the daylight, and you may have some music with some beats playing and things. Beats can work because a regular rhythm. The only thing is you want that same rhythm to carry through. But if there are events in the music, like there's like a chorus and a verse, for example, it can pull people out of what they're in. It can change their journey, and it can be quite abrupt. If anything, you want to help lull people down to a very relaxed state. Excuse me, so they just relax. What does the doctor say? Rest and relaxation. There's a good reason for that. And the other thing that I'll do is that I'll often have some water that I've charged up, and then we will have a glass of water each as sort of part of the ritual. I like bringing in ritual to this too, and that's one of the reasons I really liked exploring Reiki is that you don't have to do ritual with like on a chair session. If like for example you're at somebody's place and somebody's like, I've got a sore thing, you can just go, hey, can I try something? It's fine. In Reiki, they have something which not a lot of people talk about, called gasho, which is essentially bringing your hands together. And they talk about doing this morning and night. Now, those of you who know that this posture here, when done, not like this, not like this, just out from the body, and with a tennis ball in between here, and you hold it out like this, when the fascia and the ligaments and tendons are flexed a little bit, and you sit like this for a bit, and you've got a good seated posture, you can have an interesting experience. You want it up about here, about by your nose. Bring your tips of your fingers at about the nose level there, and you sit with that. Sitting forward, don't sit in the back of the chair, sitting on your sit bones on the edge of a seat, feet on the ground, and just sit in that posture. Some will say you're bringing sun and moon together. Some will say you're completing an electric and magnetic circuit. However, you sit with it and you can explore the experience. And that can help to sort of even out your own energetic sort of status, so that when you do the session with people, you don't have, you are in a type of equilibrium already. And that's really what you want. Like I said, you don't want to be adding to the person's situation. And I'd say too, like one of the things that Barden's book is really great for is that it teaches you about, the magic of water, which is letting the water element sort of pull things off you and cleaning you as you do it. That's very good to do before and very good to do after. But yeah, when you turn your healing session, like if you've got people coming in for table work, setting up a ritual before and after, very powerful. You might you might make a circle or a sphere around the working area. You regularly clean and sage or use Palo Santo and all these types of things. And I'd say too that the less that you are, especially, it sounds counterintuitive, but the more intuitive you are with your process, you kind of get lost in a process and you become the hollow bone, the empty conduit. And that, for me, is where things tend to be more interesting. If you're involved in active manipulation of people's subtle bodies, even if you've got a direct connection and you get the okay from upstairs to go, yep, no, you can do the thing, or if you're in connection with non-dual deities who can basically work through you or work with you so that you don't upset karma. I just like this sort of, sometimes it's fun just to not know. You leave things open a lot more. And I know that's not a very hermetic way of doing things, It becomes less of a science and more of an art. But there is, I mean, if Hermetics is the science, then shamanism is an art. And there's something between these two worlds where they complement each other. And even though they seem to contradict each other almost, they have this beautiful dance that they do. It's sort of like if you've ever played music, like improvised blues guitar or rock guitar. I've done this. Um, you you go away and you learn all the chords and the scales and the song templates and the chord progressions and things, and you learn how to play with a beat and how to communicate with others being on stage, and that you learn all these skills, and then you get up on the stage when it's time to play the gig, and you just jam. You're not thinking about these things. Sometimes you might find your mind or your brain or your intellect dipping into certain things to recall something, but the more you can let go, the more space there is for something different to happen, something that hasn't happened before, to make you go, oh, wow. Because I think as soon as things become too predictable, they can be a bit, becomes a bit samey. The novelty gets lost, and I think that's why art is so important. Actually, here's a good example. So, for example, like here's a set of tarot cards, right? So if I pull one of these out, let's see. Okay, let's pull a tarot card out. Oh, here we go. Perfect. Here we go. Queen of Wands. She is the fiery influencer. Okay. There's 78 cards in this deck, right? You know it's going to be one of these cards. Whichever one it is, whatever your situation, you might be like, oh, it's just luck of the draw, like if I pull another one out, oh, Hangman. It's actually a good one. It's about seeing things from a different angle, isn't it? But I watched a lady who's the wife of a chap on YouTube, and he's got 400,000 subscribers on his tarot channel. It's an excellent tarot channel, I want to say. I've never really listened to tarot. I've been a tarot reader, but I haven't really listened to other tarot readers. It's called Dove and Serpent Tarot. Paul is you can tell he's well versed in metaphysics and hermetics and Kabbalah and various mystery traditions. But his wife runs a channel and she does tea leaf readings. And she will hold up a bowl and there will be all of these. It's like a Rorschach test, like an ink blot test. There's all of these. It's like, black tea leaves on a white bowl. And you look at this and go, wow. And she's reading it and you can see it. There's all of this pareidolia, if you want to call it that. She's finding shapes and patterns and things in it. It's very interesting because she starts speaking and gets into this kind of stream of consciousness. And it's almost like a kind of intuitive storytelling. And it's what I find happens too with when I do certain, when I read for certain people, or if I am playing, when I used to play guitar, you're just sort of wandering, you start wandering outside of the lines. Off the guardrails would start to dissolve, and the what got your momentum going with the training wheels or the guide rails, whatever, just like I said, it just falls away. And then you find yourself entering new territory and discovering new things. And this is just incredible. It's actually incredible because you will surprise yourself. Like, where did that come from? All right, what do we got? Okay. All right. Okay, guys, I've just done a whole bunch of talking. I'm just going to stop for a sec. Let me know what's happening out there. Let's see. I still see we've got a couple of people on Facebook. Oh, yeah, cool. You're most welcome. Thank you, Nostalgia. I appreciate the question. It gives me talking points and gives me a way to, because, I'm here to serve, right? So I want to, if you guys give me your conversational topics, then I will do my best to help you out. And I'll just let you know where I'm not, I won't wander outside the scope of my experience unless I kind of feel like something's wanting to come through. So, but yeah, I would say that as far as energy healing books go, Quantum Touch 2. You don't need to get this one. This is pretty cool. This has got like, oh geez, it's got 58 experiments in it that you can do for this healing outcome. It's pretty fun. Like experiments, guys. Testable, repeatable experiments with metaphysical phenomena. This one here is really good because you get good at a new skill. Well, they're all skills, but this one here, by Bill Bengston, William Bengston, he's got a really great clip on YouTube. It's about 47 minutes long, where he gives a like a PowerPoint presentation about curing the cancer in mice, and it's fascinating, because he's just straight up like he's a professor. He's a tenured professor of sociology. Now you might be like, oh, I'm not sociology, blah blah blah. Okay, whatever. He's a scientist bringing forward his lab results. Okay, and where he picked all the stuff up from is a really interesting story as well. But yeah, these are interesting types of discussions because they can add to our growing conviction that there are things going on that we can't quite explain. And there's a mystery aspect there that's very satisfying, And oh, hello. Thank you, Frater I. See, I'm glad you enjoyed it, brother. You're such a wonderfully supportive person in the community. I'm so grateful. Thank you. For those of you that haven't checked it out, check out Frater IAC on YouTube and on Substack too. Don't forget Substack, guys. There's a bunch of us now that are on Substack, and Substack is a beautiful growing community of all sorts. It's got a lot to do with, there's a lot of tech, finance type conversations. There's actually quite a lot going on Substack, and honestly, from my experience on there, it's one that I'm going to maintain my presence on. For starters, there's no ads. I'll take it. But yeah, there's so Andre Conscientia, Frater IAC, Perseus is on there, Perseus Arcane Academy. Who else is on there? Falcon Books is on there, although I don't think Falcon's been too active on there. Same with Clint Sabom. She's on, sorry, Clint. So Falcon Books, Tanya, she's on there. Clint Sabom is on there. Clint's great. Go and check out Clint. He's I haven't seen much of him lately. He might have been on holiday with his family. And there's a few others too. There's a few other well-known names too, like Damien Eccles and Mitch Horowitz, and that's more Golden Dawn probably type things, but that's not outside of the scope of the conversations that we have on this channel either. Although this channel tends to be more of a Bardonian Rasmus / Reiki Phil Rice kind of hodgepodge. But that's all good. It is where it goes. But yeah, anyway, guys, I think we'll call it there. I'm so grateful to you all. Thank you for joining me on here. I'm going to aim to get on here much more regularly, and we'll have some more conversations. Grateful to you all. Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Stay well.